Good morning. We're here to remember, honor, pay our respects to Dr. Yoshi Sasaki, and to, of course, extend our condolences to his family. I think you'll learn today what most of you already know, that Yoshi was a unique and outstanding individual, and he was not only an outstanding scientist, he made contributions as a statesman, as a person well known to the business community of Japan and Oklahoma, and more importantly, as a loving husband, father, grandfather, and a friend to many of us in the room and many of us around the world. So let me introduce the first speaker, Dr. Barry Moore, Vice President for Weather and Climate Programs, Dean of the College of Atmospheric and Geographic Sciences, the Chesapeake Energy Corporation Chair in Climate Sciences Studies, and Director of the Weather Center and a Professor of the School of Meteorology. Barry?
Thank you, David. Sasaki family. I want to welcome all of you to the National Weather Center. I know that you are here because of Professor Yoshi Sasaki. You are here safely in part because of the work of Professor Sasaki. And it is that work and the fact that you're here safely and the fact that he contributed so much to this planet that we are all here today. So welcome to the National Weather Center.
Thank you very much, Arian. It's been a real pleasure and an honor to get to know Larry Sasaki, who will be the next speaker. Dr. Larry Sasaki, MD, one of Yoshi's sons, and it's my honor to introduce him to give the opening remarks and invocation. Thank you.
Good morning. Please bow your heads in prayer. Our Lord, thank you for, we acknowledge your presence here with us. Thank you for all the gifts that you've given us and being with those that have traveled very far to attend the celebration of my father, Yoshi Sasaki. We pray that you comfort us and you continue to be with us and be encouraging to those that continue my father's work. And please be with us to cherish his memories and to fill our hearts with joy and hope. Continue to be with us all, and we also pray that please be with those who have recently have their loss due to the severe weather. Please be with them and fill them with hope and comfort. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I didn't know how to start this my speech to you. I've come to realize that there's so many things about my father, about his professionalism, his work, that I continue to learn to this day. And I'm sure I'll hear this from all of you, from our speakers this morning. So I thought, well, perhaps I should just show you a different part of my father, or explain to you what he meant to me as a son, the personal family side of him. So what I like to do is kind of reflect, take you back memory lane and just kind of go back to my childhood. And I'll make this pretty quick, so I don't have to spend all morning with this. I recall when I first, as a kindergartner or first grade, having explained to my family, for my friends and the other students in class, what my father did. And I had to tell them, well, he was a weatherman. And they would look at me and say, well, gee, we never saw him on TV. And so I had to explain to them that he worked behind the scenes. And what was even harder for me at the time was to even say that he was a meteorologist as a kindergartner. And there's no way I could actually write it. It took me a while to figure out how to write meteorology. And then as I grew older, I learned that my father was very forgiving, and he also encouraged us as children to be adventurous and very courageous. And I'd like to share a little story which just sticks in my mind. And I think certain parts of our lives that really stick in our minds that have been very somewhat challenging, keeps in your mind. This was a time when I was about 5 or 6 years of age, and my brother was, I think, 11. And my brother had this wild idea that it was during July 4th. We wanted to make some firecrackers. So we decided that we would go ahead and do it on our own. My brother decided, well, we would go ride our bikes to the firecracker stand, get some fireworks. Well, now mind you, this was in summer. And the blistering heat here, you all know, like 110 degrees. We have one bottle of water, and we're heading out. And the thing that really is startling that is this firecracker stand was about 10 miles away. So we're trucking now. I'm riding a tricycle, and my brother is riding a banana seat bike. We're going along, as you can imagine. We have to call my dad and say, "Hey, Dad, we're stuck here." And for me, he didn't scold me. I don't recall that at all. Now, Jim, you may have a different recollection, but he was encouraging. He thought it was very nice that it was courageous and adventurous that we decided as kids to go out and do this on our own. Later, as I was also growing up in grade school, he also encouraged my curiosity and encouraging me to learn things that would help me later in life. And what I mean by that, and that is, he actually encouraged me to take apart his stereo, his camera. I took all parts of all kinds of things. And as a surgeon, I kind of do that now. But back then, I would take these apart, but I wouldn't put it back together. I'd always have an extra part left. So he never got upset with me. His Nikon camera and so forth, he never got upset. Never used it again. So, and then later on in what I would call, as I grew older, and that is, he encouraged hard work. And what I mean by that, and as I know you know all of his achievements, and I tell you, at home, he was sitting right there at the dinner table, the TV on, with Japanese news, and working away. I didn't know what he was doing, but I knew he was working. The other thing I recall too, and that is, he would take us as children, and Anna, you may recall this too, take us to the computer center. And back then, for those that are very young, you may not realize, but those big IBM computers took the whole room. Now it's all in one little laptop, the computer strength. We had those remember those little cards, those IBM cards? Anna and I would be sitting there, we were just typing away all kinds of messages. And my dad would he'll be there trucking away with, boxes of cards. And then we would stay there till late at night. We're talking like 10 at night, so forth, what I recollect. It just showed me that, hey, he was always working, and he valued hard work. And I think he's instilled that among us three. I also recollect that his perseverance, and I have two kind of stories of the one later I'll kind of explain, but this one I want to kind of share with you. And he was also a perfectionist. And the story that Jim and I can appreciate, and that is, he bought this big ski boat, and we like to ski, but my father was also an incredible fisherman. He showed us all how to fish. He took us to Lake Texoma and all kinds of places, fishing early in the morning when it's freezing in the morning. We'd be out there fishing away. But he wanted the ski boat. He wanted to to have a bass boat or convert it into a bass boat. And so he bought this trolling motor, which was a smaller, this is like a 25-foot boat, a small trolling motor to kind of use that to kind of move our boat around, to our bass fishing. Well, he can never get it right. He put it on the front of the boat, put it on the back of the boat. It would never, it would just not do what he wanted to do. Well, ultimately what had happened, and that is, Jim, I think you took the boat with you, skiing. But but what it showed me, and that is, he wanted to perfect that boat in a manner which would serve his purposes. I feel like that there's a lot of stories that I could share with you, and obviously I don't have time to share all those. But as an adult, he's always been dependable. He's always been there, and he's always been for us, there for our family. But despite all the achievements that I continue to learn about to this day, he did have he was not infallible. He was human. And one of the things I recollect as a child as well, and that was ironic, and that is we would be driving around, a storm would flare up years ago before Doppler radar, and we would just, by wind, would be chasing for tornadoes. And we would do this, I can't tell you how many times we did that. And I was excited as a child. I wanted to see a tornado. And I tell you, not one did I see, I never had one tornado. Now, I think because of that, again, him being a nature of his perseverance, I guess that's what he's done recently, and that is he's developed models to be able to predict the location of tornadoes. One of the things that he showed me, and you'll have to help me with this, but he showed me by hand some model that he uses to show the vortex of the wind and so forth. So this is kind of his symbol, or his you do things like, well, I don't want you to do that, but Lawrence not here. But all kinds of symbols. But this is his symbol. He would show me, and it would kind of make sense to me. So it's interesting that for the past year, throughout his illness, my father, again, showing his perseverance to the day that he could not actually continue to work. He was working on his last paper. And it is amazing that he developed this theory, and again, you guys, I'm sure hear about later, but and again, it has to do with tornadoes. And he was very proud of that. And he certainly did express that to all of us. I believe that I'm very blessed to have had my father, and I'm sure all of you are blessed as well. And I pray that you continue to carry on with his work, which I'm sure you will. For me, and I'm speaking for my family, I'm very grateful for God giving my father to us to teach us, for my father to teach us the values of life, to be humble, respectful, to be hardworking, and he was an excellent father, and he was an excellent grandfather. He was also a good husband. My mother and father were married for 61 years. I can't even stay married for a day. So I didn't get that part from them. So, but so that being said, I'd like to share with you something from my heart. It's a passage from John 14. I don't have a Bible. Isn't it amazing what you can do now with the iPad? I'm sure many of you know this passage. Let not your heart be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If were not so, I would have told you. For I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I come again and will receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may also be also, and whither I go, ye know the way. Thomas saith unto him, Lord. Thank you.
Larry, thank you so much for that insight into your dad. It was very, very nice. The next speaker is Mr. Lloyd Harden, the Honorary Consul General of Japan.
As Dr. Parsons mentioned, my name is Lloyd Harden. I am the Honorary Consul General of Japan for Oklahoma, as was my predecessor, Dr. Yoshikazu Sasaki. In that capacity, we both have led delegations of the most senior officials to Japan. We received and led many delegations to Oklahoma from Japan, and when appropriate, spoken on behalf of the Japanese governmental entities, including the imperial, national, state, or prefecture, and municipal authorities of Japan. In this latter capacity, I've been asked to be here today by the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs to read and present 3 letters commemorating the remarkable life of Dr. Sasaki. First, I read a letter from the governor of Kyoto Prefecture, the home of the imperial family of Japan and the sister state of Oklahoma, as follows. To the family of Dr. Yoshikazu Sasaki, on the occasion of the late Dr. Sasaki's memorial service, I offer my deepest and most heartfelt condolences. We all share in his family's grief and sadness as we mark nearly 2 months since his passing. During his lifetime, Dr. Sasaki accumulated a wealth of achievements and experiences, particularly as a pioneering meteorologist in his tornado research, while also working ceaselessly to help support the friendly relations between Kyoto Prefecture and Oklahoma State, contributing greatly as a bridge between us long after its beginning. Indeed, 2015 marks 30 years since the commencement of our friendly relations, and we will be organizing various events and programs to commemorate this occasion. It was thanks to Dr. Sasaki that we were able to conclude such a relationship, and I hope that we can build on his efforts to forge even deeper and stronger ties for the future. Once again, please allow me to express my deepest gratitude and utmost respect for his research achievements and for his invaluable contributions to exchange between not only Kyoto and Oklahoma, but also between Japan and the USA. I offer my prayers that his soul may rest in peace. With deepest sympathy, signed, Keiji Yamada, Governor of Kyoto Prefecture. Next, I read a letter from the mayor of Sasaki, Japan, the sister city of Norman, Oklahoma. To the family members of the late Yoshikazu Sasaki, as a memorial ceremony for Dr. Sasaki arrives, on the behalf of the town of Sasaki, I would once again like to express our condolences and deepest sympathies during this time of grief. Dr. Sasaki, throughout his life, made great progress in forming the sister city relationship between the city of Norman and the town of Sasaki. And even after its establishment, he continued to act as a bridge, furthering the friendship of our two cities. This year marks the 10th anniversary of the relationship between Sasaki and Norman. We plan to give our utmost effort to further strengthening the many bonds that Dr. Sasaki has created between our two cities, while showing our profound respect for his contributions to the exchange between Norman and Sasaki, Kyoto and Oklahoma, and Japan and the United States, as well as for his research in tornado prediction and meteorology. As a whole, we would once again like to offer our condolences for the passing of Dr. Yoshikazu Sasaki. With deepest sympathies, signed, Kaname Kimura, the mayor of Sasaki, Japan. Next, I read excerpts from the Consul General Nozomu Takaoka of the Consulate General of Japan at Houston, where the Consul General, I might mention, has recently arrived from being the #2 diplomat of Japan in Tehran for all of the country of Iran, as follows. I extend my deepest sympathies and condolences to Madam Koko Sasaki, her family, and those whose lives Dr. Yoshikazu Sasaki touched through his many outstanding achievements and his extraordinary experiences. Born in Japan, Dr. Sasaki in 1954 witnessed the devastation of Typhoon Toyomaru, which killed 1,139 people in northern Japan. This incident strengthened his will to form scientific solutions to natural disasters in order to protect lives and help the world. This resulted in Dr. Sasaki's pioneering work in variation methods to meteorology, first at Texas A&M and then in numerical weather prediction at the University of Oklahoma, where he became a founding father of the internationally renowned School of Meteorology in 1968. As a result of his success, Dr. Sasaki was awarded the title of George Lynn Cross Professor at the university, was inducted into the Oklahoma Higher Education Hall of Fame, received the Fujiwara Award in Japan from the Meteorological Society of Japan, the highest honor in his field in Japan, and was named a fellow to the American Meteorological Society. Never one to rest on his laurels, Dr. Sasaki, at the request of a number of Oklahoma governors, spent years promoting Japan-Oklahoma relations, resulting in the establishment of several Japanese businesses in this area, including Hitachi, Astellas, and Weather News, representatives of which I know are here today. His passion continued with the founding of the Sister State Agreement between the state of Oklahoma and Kyoto Prefecture, the ancestral home of the imperial family of Japan. Accordingly, the government of Japan highly commends Dr. Sasaki's enormous contributions to the cultural, economic, and academic interactions between Japan and Oklahoma. In 2004, the Emperor of Japan granted him the Order of the Sacred Treasure with gold rays and neck ribbon for his lifelong contributions to science and international affairs. Although having just recently arrived from Tehran, Iran, I have long heard of Dr. Sasaki's many accomplishments, including his invaluable dedication as the former Honorary Consul General of Japan to Oklahoma. He did so many good things and left a standing mark in Japan-U.S. relations in the studies of severe weather, and with his kind and generous assistance to the Japanese people in Oklahoma, that I and the government and the people of Japan are and will remain forever truly grateful. Signed, Nozomu Takaoka, Consul General of Japan. And by the way, I should mention, those letters are in presentation folders with the kanji, Japanese kanji, signed on the right side and the English translation on the left side that the government has asked me to present to the family, and I'll do so here in a moment. Now, I will say also, though, that Dr. Sasaki was my friend personally and my mentor. And Madam Sasaki asked me to add, if I would, a few personal remarks in conclusion. And as I look around the room, I see quite a few people as well who also considered Dr. and Madam Sasaki to be friends and mentors. Accordingly, for the remainder of these remarks, I will identify them as they ask all of us to call them, Yoshi and Koko. As I mentioned, Yoshi Sasaki was my friend. He was a remarkable man who lived an extraordinary life. But as I think back, there's no doubt in my mind that Yoshi's best of times centered on the loving, caring relationship that he enjoyed and that we all witnessed with Koko and his family. Although Yoshi could appear at times reserved in the manner expected of successful and important Japanese men, he would frequently, particularly around his family, break into that Yoshi smile of his, which would sometimes seem to spin out of the thin air, much like the weather systems that he studied, and frequently out of the cocoon of love and affection that Coco would generate that would engulf them all. And yet, as important as family was to Yoshi, there was another area of his life which was almost as important. And that was his relationships, mentorships, friendships, and network of friends that stretched from Japan all across the United States and throughout the world. I remember that Yoshi believed that while friendships and relationships confirmed many blessings and benefits, he also believed they imposed on him an equal, if not greater, amount of obligations. In that regard, in his own words, he viewed the creation of a friendship analogous to the sowing of seeds or the planting of seedlings, which once planted required nurturing, care, and cultivation, but which once cultivated could sprout results in the most unlikely of places in his field of friends. In that regard, Yoshi's tools of nurturing those plantings came straight from a Japanese proverb that provides a true friend should make expenditures of time, thought, or things if a friendship were to grow into its proper statute. Yoshi lived his life in the use of those tools. How many times did each of us look up or answer the phone and see Yoshi standing there or on the phone line with words of encouragement or support, an inquiry as to our well-being or continued success, or just something to let us know we were in his thoughts? And whatever the interval was since we last heard from Yoshi, it was always Planter Yoshi using his tools of nurturing. Never was it friend Yoshi seeking anything in return. Having said all that, I know Yoshi felt he received much more than he gave from his friendships. I think we all know that such was not the case. And indeed, we were all fortunate to have Planter Yoshi and his green thumb come into our lives. Moreover, I suspect that if Yoshi were here today, he might be embarrassed to hear a public celebration of the fabric of his nature that he just took for granted. I do know, however, that Yoshi Sasaki would admit to being an honorable and principled man, a good and loving husband and father, and a builder of relationships that will span the gulf of time. And so in conclusion, I merely note, Yoshi Sasaki was our friend, and our world is a much better place for him having been here. Thank you. And I'm going to present this. The government asked me to present this as family, these letters, so I will do that.
Thank you so much, Lloyd, for those formal words and also remembrance of a good friend. I've also been asked to read several letters. Many letters came into the school and also to Coco of condolences and remembrances, and I'll just read a couple. Coco, with dearest sympathy at this time of sorrow, I'm so sorry for your loss of your wonderful husband, Yoshi. He was such a great ambassador for Oklahoma, and a joy to be around. My thoughts and prayers are with you at this time. Mary Fallon, Governor of Oklahoma. We also received messages of condolences from both the sister city council in Stillwater, the Norman Sister Cities and International Connections organization, the Division of International Studies and Outreach from Oklahoma State University, and also the International Studies from OU, and also from the Department of Modern Languages, Literature, and Linguistics at University of Oklahoma. And I'll just read excerpts from a letter from the Meteorological Society of Japan, from Hiroshi Nemo, the president of the Meteorological Society. Like many friends and colleagues, I was shocked and saddened to learn of the passing of Professor Yoshikazu Sasaki. On behalf of the members of the Meteorological Society of Japan, I would like to express our deepest sympathies to you and your family members. The letter then goes on to talk about his pioneering work in data assimilation and variational techniques that were done in the 70s, and notes that it really couldn't even be applied to the real atmosphere at that time because of lack of computer power. And as computer power increases, data assimilation and variational techniques are playing an essential role, and it's become one of the most important means in atmospheric science and meteorology, especially in analysis and numerical weather prediction. And the importance of this topic continues. And also, just one more note from this letter. It also notes that Yoshi was one of the two co-founders of the School of Meteorology in Oklahoma. He was a respectable mentor and supervised a number of scientists who are active in the community of meteorology and atmospheric sciences throughout the world. He also accepted many Japanese scientists at OU and looked after them. They're now playing important roles in the meteorological community in Japan. These contributions are all due to his warm-hearted dedication and passionate mentorship, and you'll learn more about his mentoring of graduate students later. He also visited Japan frequently and stimulated Japanese scientists by introducing state-of-the-art research on meteorology and atmospheric sciences. Professor Sasaki served as a trustful bridge between the United States and Japan to deepen and enhance scientific exchanges between the two countries. So again, he's someone that touched the lives of students, touched the lives of the economic well-being of our state, and also touched lives throughout the world. It's my pleasure to next introduce the Honorable Roger Randall, former mayor of Tulsa, former Oklahoma senator, and former president pro tempore of the Oklahoma State Senate, and former Oklahoma representative.
And also a member of the University of Oklahoma faculty. And I'm also the honorary consul for Great Britain. So we have two different foreign countries represented on the program today. Dr. Harden did such an excellent job on behalf of those of us who are friends of Yoshi, speaking and summarizing what we feel, that I'll just add a few more things, but add them from a perspective of the state of Oklahoma, because I still feel authorized to speak on behalf of the state, even though we have the nice letter from the governor, and to speak on behalf of the people of Tulsa, Oklahoma, because Yoshi reached all parts of the state. I talked to former Mayor Savage of Tulsa this week, and she expressed her hopes for the success of this event and was reminiscing about Yoshi and all the qualities that all of us have valued. I knew him as a result of our activities at the state level, and the way that Yoshi supported Oklahoma, and the way that he helped us lead delegation to Japan, and was always giving in support of the development of our state. And it's an indication of the value in which his memory is held, that the chairman of the Governor's International Economic Development Team is here in the audience today representing that organization. Our country is so fortunate that people like Yoshi and Coco have come to be part of our community. Our country has been built by people from all parts of the globe, and almost all of us come from somewhere else in the world at some point. And so we want to thank Yoshi and Coco for reaching so far away from home to contribute so much to all of us. One has to pause and wonder, though, now why would someone move specifically where the tornadoes were most likely to get you? And but that's Yoshi, and fear was not there. And we look at Coco and all of us who have known Coco, and you know, the most wonderful thing about Coco was seeing Coco and Yoshi together, because the way that Coco expressed her affection and admiration and the way that Yoshi was always looking after Coco. You know, we can talk about the wonderful work done in weather. We can talk about the contributions to the government of the state of Oklahoma. But, you know, we can also just look at two human beings in love and see the way that was an expression that benefited all of us as well. We've met one son, we'll meet another son. They claim to be sons, but they sound 100% Okie to me. I don't know. So I'd like to see the birth certificates if we could. Except that in Larry, I can see Yoshi. And in James, I can see Coco. And that's a wonderful thing. You know, we've all here known Yoshi in different ways. I knew him as a friend and through his contributions to the state of Oklahoma. But however we knew him, what we really treasure and remember about Dr. Sasaki was the person, Yoshi. The person who was, above all other things, fun. Someone who always had a smile, someone who made you smile because of the way he smiled. And so I think of this Yoshi who had been granted audiences with the emperor, but who, when you were with him, was just one of us and made us feel that we were as fine and grand and important as he was. He was a grand but humble person that made us all feel that we could be something more, just as he had become. And all of us have been testimonies to all the little kindnesses that only genuine concern for others would express. We have all been testimonies to the generosities that he would express in little but sincere ways. And we all have been testimonies to the supportive way in which he raised us all up. I remember we get some of the little groups together before a couple of the trips that we did to Japan, and we would try to learn a little Japanese. And of course it was just pathetic, but Yoshi would be so supportive that we'd keep going, and we would give all that we could. And so when we think of the life of this man, it's appropriate that we record all of the achievements and honors and distinguished accomplishments. But what we'll all really remember and treasure is the caring, kind person who never stopped thinking about all those who were around him and who enriched our lives and blessed our state. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I also wanted to just say that there was a message also from the city of Oklahoma City. Councilwoman and Vice Mayor Meg Saller sends her condolences also. And I'm also going to read excerpts from one letter from C&Key Park, and in a way it's actually an introduction for our next speaker. To Coco and Yoshi's family, first of all, please accept my deep condolences on the passing of Yoshi. It was my great honor to share a part of my lifetime with such a great person, and I will truly miss him. My memory with Yoshi dates back to the fall semester of 1990, which was my first semester at OU School of Meteorology as a PhD student. Without an assigned advisor, I took his course and happened to be placed at the top of the course. Yoshi then strongly recommended me to Kelvin Drugemeyer, who accepted to serve as my academic advisor. Without his help, I could not have continued my study at OU, and without Yoshi, I would not have met such a nice advisor as Kelvin. So I owe him a deep debt of gratitude. And there's another paragraph I'll read in here. After I came back to Korea with a faculty job at Ewha Women's University, I never forgot Yoshi's pioneer spirit of establishing a new department at OU and adapting the variational method to meteorology. In 2007, I established the first meteorological-related research institute in my university called the Severe Storms Research Center. So he's also touched Korea. In 2009, I received a large grant from the Korean government to establish the Center for Climate and Environmental Change Prediction Research. Finally, I founded the Department of Atmospheric Sciences and Engineering in 2012. All of these achievements were inspired by Yoshi's pioneering spirit. And I think some of the comments we just heard about how Yoshi treated everyone, from students, staff, governors, people in the state senate, people in foreign affairs with the same dignity and enthusiasm. But he also had this vision, large vision. The first time I met him, he was telling me, I was at NCAR, he was telling me how much Sims and OU would grow, and I just kind of shook my head and said, well, I'll stay in Boulder, thank you, but here I am today. And, he was also a very persistent man. And I think this treating everyone equal, having a large vision, and this persistence and good-natured spirit really led to the founding of things in Oklahoma, but also in Korea and elsewhere. So he's really touched people around the world. So, Sion Key Park, words came from, he was a student of Kelvin Drugemeyer's, and who's vice president for research, Weather News chair emeritus at School of Meteorology, and Roger Sherry Teagan, presidential professor. And I'll say with that, actually, from reading the letter from Dr. Park, who's the vice president of his university for university planning and coordination, we're lucky enough to have 3 vice presidents of universities, 2 at OU, speaking their words today, or their words being read. So thank you, Kelvin.
If there's a global Yoshi Sasaki fan club, Sasaki Park is certainly the president of it. He loves Yoshi very much. He continues to honor him through his work and through the symposia that he creates in Yoshi's name in data assimilation. So it's really an honor to be here to pay tribute to one of my best friends ever. I had the privilege of meeting Yoshi almost 40 years ago as a student. I was a freshman coming to the University of Oklahoma to study meteorology. And I got to know Yoshi in the capacity as a professor, and then later on as a colleague, as a faculty colleague. And I can tell you that in those 40 years, I was enchanted by this man and just never stopped loving him and being awed by him in so many ways. For those reasons, it's so difficult to put into words what he's meant to me and what he continues to mean to me and will continue to mean to me for the rest of my life. But I am going to try to summarize it with 5 points. The first one, and they're in no particular order except for the first one, that is Yoshi as an honorable gentleman. The second is that he's brilliant. The third is he's energetic. The fourth is he's humble. And the fifth is he was very tenacious. First and foremost, Yoshi was an honorable gentleman. And that term, frankly, it's hard to find people like that on this planet today. He had no agendas. He was completely genuine in everything he did. He cared deeply for other people. He worked very hard to ensure their success in life. And kind of harking back to what Larry said, I never, ever heard Yoshi raise his voice, though I saw on many occasions he had ample opportunity to do that in faculty meetings and in lots of places. He never did that. He paid deference to people who were far less accomplished than he was, and much more junior, and he respected the views and opinions of everyone. I remember coming back to the faculty as a junior professor, 1985, and here was Yoshi, this bigger-than-life character, and he respected my views as a brand-new professor, formerly a student, and he never saw me ever again in the eyes as a student. In his eyes as a student, he always saw me as a colleague, and I think that's really extraordinary. The other thing that really struck me about Yoshi is he offered all of his counterpoints to arguments people made in a very collegial way, and he won those arguments with his intellectual power, not with the tone of his voice. You don't see that very much today. You don't see that kind of a role model today at all. Second, Yoshi was an unbelievably brilliant man, not only as a scholar, but his ability to connect the dots and see the future. I think Larry mentioned that, and Lloyd and Roger. It's just really remarkable. He conducted pioneering research. We all know that. And the thing Larry was talking about is entropic balance theory. That was the paper Yoshi published just about a year ago, and he was passionate about this. I remember having lots and lots of discussions, and he really brought this out of the dregs of basic physics, and he would bring books to my office and show me, the stuff in quantum theory about this thing, and he said, I've found a way to apply it to the atmosphere. And it's one of those things, like I think in the 70s, where people say, boy, I don't know about this, but I think it's going to end up being a seminal work, because it's really something that was well before its time. As you've heard, he was brilliant in seeing the future in relations between Japan and Oklahoma, and Norman in particular. As you heard, he brought Astellas Pharma here. He brought Weather News. He brought Hitachi. And I say brought, I don't mean he just was on the sidelines helping. If it weren't for Yoshi, those wonderful organizations would not be here. But also with Coco by his side, and I love to see that, because they truly were in love, as you heard. The fine arts and the culture, the enrichment that we've benefited from through their work together has been unbelievable. The students and the exchange programs that they created between Japan and Oklahoma were remarkable, and Coco's beautiful work in dance. It's really, really incredible. And when Yoshi entered his later years, when other people's senses would have become dulled and so on, Yoshi never slowed down. He always remained absolutely razor sharp to the end, and his passion and enthusiasm were just truly remarkable, and keeping up with that man was really, really, really tough. And that leads me to the third point, and that's Yoshi's energy. I remember when I went to Japan for the first time with Yoshi, it was about 20-some years ago, and we were on the bullet train. He was very excited to show me. We went to Kyoto and saw some beautiful various scenes and things like that. And I was literally putting my 35-millimeter slides together in the carousel as we were running between organizations. And I went to Weather News and gave a talk. And Yoshi's just so excited, and I'm jet-lagged beyond belief. I'm just bleary-eyed. And I gave 5 major seminars in one day. I'm like, Yoshi, what are you doing to me? And he's just zipping around and everything. And he got there at the same time I did. Okay. So, it shows the incredible energy that this man had. And he was always so excited to show me the countryside. I remember passing by these beautiful rows of tea, and he would show me and tell me all of what Japan was about. And the pace was really exhausting. But the thing is, I was never going to let Yoshi down. And we were, why? Well, because it was Yoshi, because we were in his beloved Japan. Japan meant so much to Yoshi. And he saw how these presentations and our trip was going to change the future, and he was right. And he would still come to my office across the street, did so even a few months ago, bringing his latest ideas and asking for a little bit of money to travel here and there and so on. And you could never imagine making a better investment than somebody like Yoshi. The fourth point I want to make is Yoshi's humility, and that again is a quality, true humility, thinking not less of oneself, but thinking about oneself less, is something that was just part of Yoshi's DNA, and certainly it's true for Coco and his family as well. Yoshi was born with enough humility that if it were able to be put in a vial and injected, every person on planet Earth could get a huge dose of humility from Yoshi, despite all of the accomplishments that he had. And he was, again, honored by the emperor himself, which was a deeply, deeply moving experience for him, a religious experience, a professional, life-changing experience for Yoshi. Remember him telling me about that. Pursuing all the things in life that he was passionate about. He never sought the recognition he truly, richly deserved. I remember during his 80th birthday celebration, just outside that door, when he was here and the slides were flashing across the screen and Coco was there, and we were so excited about this. And Yoshi was noticeably uncomfortable. And when you started talking to Yoshi and congratulating him, he would quickly turn and say, I've been working on this thing called entropic balance theory, and I really think it's going to be important. And that was just him, because he really didn't like that recognition. Truly, those of us who knew Yoshi and were blessed to be close to him for so many years could only hope to emulate even a tiny amount of the humility that he had. Because I think, frankly, that the greatest legacy one can leave is that, and that we can honor his memory most effectively by emulating who Yoshi was. Then finally, Yoshi was tenacious, and he was lots of things. He was kind. I kind of include that in the honorable gentleman thing. But this man was tenacious. He was a gentleman. He was humble. But he pursued his ideas with a passion. And it was like a dog with a bone, whether it was bringing Hitachi here, Weather News, talking to people in Japan, things he wanted to see happen, he would make sure that they happen. I think that was really extraordinary. Until the answer was yes, which was always the case, because there was no way you could argue with this man, because he was intellectually so powerful, so passionate, and he would just pursue you until you realized what he said, even though it may not have made sense to begin with, it was so right and it was so true and so appropriate and important that you just had to get behind it. And that's, saying no to this guy was like driving an automobile without an engine. It wasn't possible. And it was also sort of as limiting to progress to hold Yoshi back in any way. So I think yes was his favorite word. I really do. I think that was the word he loved the most. In occasions like this, you hear people say things about individuals, and you wonder, who are they talking about? That doesn't sound like the person I knew. This is who Yoshi was. Some people are larger in life after they're gone. Yoshi was larger in life while he was still here. Those of us who knew him personally, we have a special responsibility. It's not just a privilege to know this man, but he has given us a task. We may not know it, but I would argue that we need to accept it, a responsibility. And that is to make these 5 special characteristics a fundamental part of who we are, and so that we can bring his goodness to other people as he brought his goodness to us. Finally, I'd just like to say that Dave asked me to comment what Yoshi meant to the University of Oklahoma, which he loved very, very deeply. And I would say it's very, very simple. He will always be remembered as the father of this program. There are a lot of people who have grown this program who were involved in the early days, Richard Fowler, Chetty Slepsevich, there was Walt Saucier, but those guys left. They left a long time ago. Yoshi did not leave. He stayed here. He was active. He was involved not only with the university, but with our whole community and with our nation, as you've heard from Lloyd. And so what did he mean to the University of Oklahoma? He is the founding father, the one founding father of all that you see here. And so I think the most important thing we can do to honor his family and his legacy is to take this wonderful, wonderful environment that he's created here and help it touch the lives and change and improve the lives of everyone who passes through here, not just intellectually, but in these various important ways that he lived his life. Let us challenge ourselves and resolve here today to carry on that legacy for the rest of our lives and all those who pass before us through this wonderful environment here. Let's promise to Coco and the family to do our best to make sure that his spirit lives on through our active engagement, doing the things that he would want us to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelvin. That was wonderful. I do have to it's very hard for me not to ad-lib, but I have to say anybody that tired out Kelvin Drogemeyer really has to be an amazing man, because Kelvin just has a tremendous amount of energy himself. I did want to just add a personal reflection about Yoshi's persistence. So as department chair, he was very active in the school up until probably a year or so ago when his health started to fail him. And he would come in my office sometimes to lobby for things. Sometimes he'd come in to express his disappointment. And it was interesting because when he was disappointed, he'd always say, "Can you believe they did that? Can you believe somebody said that?" And then right away the smile would come out. He'd shake his head, and it was over. And I think his ability to not be petty, but just shake his head and say, "I can't believe somebody would act that way or do this," is just an amazing characteristic. We're very honored today to have Dr. Joe Friday speaking next. Joe was involved in putting together the ceremony here. I'll name others to thank later. Joe holds many titles: Professor Emeritus in the School of Meteorology, former Director of the National Weather Service, former President of the American Meteorological Society, and a PhD student, the first, right, of Yoshi Sasaki. So, Joe.
Indeed, I did have the pleasure of being Yoshi's first PhD candidate from the student from the University of Oklahoma. And I really wear that tag with pride, folks. I really wear that tag with a great deal of pride. He had 19 PhDs and 53 masters during his teaching career. I have letters from each one, but I will not read them. I really don't have letters from each one. I have contacted several in the last few weeks, and I did want to read a few excerpts from selected responses. From Bob Sheets, who went on to become an outstanding hurricane researcher and the director of the National Hurricane Center. I had the great honor of being chosen by Professor Sasaki to present a lecture at his retirement seminar. I also had the honor of attending the induction into the Oklahoma Higher Education Hall of Fame in 2004. The governor of Oklahoma presented the special award to Professor Sasaki for all he had done, not only for education, but also for bringing new industry to the state. I would never have gotten to where I did in my career without Professor Yoshi Sasaki. He was always so humble and caring for his students and all others that I'm aware of throughout his life. I am proud to call myself a student of Professor Sasaki. I could never have asked for a better advisor or friend. From Jess Charba, who is a research meteorologist at the National Weather Service. Especially now with Yoshi's passing, I come to fully appreciate the great privilege, honor, and blessing it was for me to have had him for my advisor and friend. When I think back on my experience with Yoshi at OU, a very familiar picture of him comes to mind. Regardless of the venue, whether a classroom lecture, a seminar, meeting in his office, or some social function, he always made you feel relaxed by his warm smile, his unimposing manner, his mental sharpness, and that little twinkle in his eye. Yes, Yoshi was physically short, but his heart made him seem 10 feet tall. I greatly admire the long, great life that he lived and the legacy that he left. John Lewis, who was also one of his first PhD students, remembered the pleasant walks with Yoshi in discussing research topics and the way that he was always made welcome in your home, Coco. Kit Wagner, who was a professor, a government research meteorologist, and a private sector entrepreneur, wrote, "Yoshi Sasaki inspired me to pursue excellence in my professional career. During my tenure as university professor, I looked to his example as an excellent teacher and a mentor to the graduate students as a role model. While employed as a government researcher, I took with me the enthusiasm for exploring new subjects in atmospheric sciences. In my consulting meteorological business, I found it profitable to emulate his entrepreneurial spirit in seeking opportunities. And as a fifth-generation Oklahoman, I am proud that Yoshi chose to live, work, and make his significant contributions in this great state." And then Chuck Doswell, one of his most colorful students, and Chuck is here, so I'm saying that in his presence, wrote in his blog the day that Yoshi passed on, "Today I was informed that my friend and mentor, Yoshikazu Sasaki, died sometime this morning. Many younger people at the Oklahoma OU School of Meteorology have little idea what a great meteorologist and person he was and how influential he has been. He certainly was the advisor for the majority of doctoral students graduating from OU School of Meteorology during his active tenure here. In a stroke of stupendous good fortune, I was assigned to his care as my advisor. I didn't know him then at all, but he had the time to be a great advisor and to do some excellent work as a classroom teacher. What a soaring excitement there was in his classes, where putting in extra effort paid big dividends in terms of understanding. He will not be forgotten and can never be replaced." And then Stan Barnes, who was one of the 4 graduate students that came to OU with Sasaki and Sachet to start the School of Meteorology. Stan writes, "One of my first assignments on the job was to teach Yoshi how to drive. The car chosen was a 1949 Chrysler New York sedan, fortunately with automatic transmission. In that way, he could concentrate on learning the rules of the road and not the position of the gears." Stan didn't say how many times he had to take the test before he received his license, but he did go on to say, "And now it has fallen to me as the only surviving member of that group of 6 that came from Texas A&M to the University of Oklahoma in 1960, to remember what a great group of dedicated people that was, and to commend those who followed that modest beginning to build the School of Meteorology and the Weather Center into the renowned complex it is today. And thank you, Yoshikazu Sasaki, for your tremendously important contributions to that success." On a personal note, when we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the School of Meteorology, and this tie was made especially for that purpose, and this is the first one made, by the way, we did the usual sort of thing that you have when you're celebrating a long-time organization. The MC asked everybody to stand who had been associated with the school for more than 10 years. And then he asked people to sit down in increments of 10 years. Yoshikazu Sasaki and I were the last two standing when we got past 45. And it makes me a little concerned now that I'm the only one still standing. I worked with Yoshi on many different issues over the years. I can still hear the beginning of many of our telephone conversations. He would call, and caller ID being what it is, I would always answer, "Hello, Yoshi, how are you doing?" His response was invariably, "Hi, Joe, this is Yoshi." I'm going to miss that.
Joe, thank you very much. We've heard earlier about Yoshi's ability to attract Japanese firms to the U.S., Estella, Hitachi, and Weather News. And Weather News, being a meteorological company, I think always held a close spot in his heart. And today we're honored to have two directors from Weather News, Yamato-san and Ibishi-san here. And Ibishi-san is the son of the founder of the company, and both father and son were very close to the Sasaki family, and it's an honor to have you both here and to say a few words, and I believe Yamato-san will start.
Thank you very much for giving a chance to say a few words for Yoshi-san. I met Professor Sasaki early summer of 1994. Since then, I had many worked with many things with Dr. Sasaki, and I have very learned from many things, and very progressive concept and forward power from Sasaki. I was moved from space industry in that year. I was very anxious about I can do well with Professor Sasaki. Professor Sasaki had made very much contribution to American Meteorological Society and many hundreds of contribution of growth of meteorology. I was just a newcomer from the space, and I never know about the meteorology. And I was very nervous, but there's no need to anxious about that. Yoshi-san is a man of curiosity, like a younger boy, and he had many interests in everything, much more than I. So I am very happy worked with him. We did many things together, and in particular about the Doppler radar. He was very aggressive for Doppler radar. We visited the Ishikari Doppler site in very heavy snow day, and we had a hard discussion in Neuss, Germany, in very hot summer day. Once we weather news abandoned deploying Doppler radar in Japan, but 21st centuries we deployed more than 80 Doppler radar in Japan according to Yoshi-san's intentions. This year, WNI celebrates the 30th anniversary. We went with more than 20 years with Yoshi-san. So we had learned many things from him, many things enjoying with Yoshi-san. And we miss him very much. But I imagine that he is now enjoying discussion and value creation with our former chairman, Hiro Ishibashi, as a heaven. I feel a little bit happy. So, finally, I pray for his soul, and I would like to introduce Tomohiro Ishibashi as a very good friend of Yoshi-san. Thank you.
So good morning. I'm very honored to speak here, and my name is Tomohiro Ishibashi. I know you guys it's a little bit difficult to pronounce, but maybe some people already know my family name, Ishibashi. That is Weather News founder's name, and yes, it is my father's name. And Dr. Sasaki and my father, the relationship is very, very close, very tight. And of course, I want to talk to Sasaki Sensei. Sasaki Sensei is one of the best mentor for the weather news, but I believe he's a best friend with my father as well. So you already mentioned, I think, unfortunately, my father passed away about 5 years ago. But now, hopefully, Sasaki Sensei and my father enjoyed a very exciting discussion again in maybe I don't know, peace place. So I'm a very lucky guy because my father and Sasaki Sensei's relationship, I have a lot of the chance to talk and learn from Sasaki Sensei. And my first lesson from the Sasaki Sensei is during the dinner in Noma. We going to the steakhouse. Maybe a lot of the people already do the same thing. And we order the same steak. And I'm very surprised because at the time, maybe he already above the 80 years old, but he ate the steak faster than me. I never imagined that. So, lesson 1 from Sasaki Sensei is the man who have a power enough to change the world eat beef. Very boundary. So from that moment when I saw the steak, I always supposed to imagine the Sasaki sensei's the behavior and also his warm smile. So that is first my lesson. But anyway, he teach and mentor me a lot. And when I share our business in Japan, actually I'm in charge of the mobile app or B2C business in Japan, and I share our experience. Actually, we make a lot of the success and also create the accurate forecast through the user's data reports. At the time, he said, "Hey, Bashi-san, that is very, very important technology right now, the mobile. And it's gonna be maybe a huge invention for the human being. So please keep working and please focus on the mobile. That is the last way or maybe the best way to create a new thing in the weather industry." I never forget that word. And I keep doing that work. So maybe in this room, a lot of the people learn a lot, and we have we share the same dream with him. So even though he already physically is not sitting around us, but we know he's still living in our heart, right? Then, as one of the Weather News employee, I'm sure I'm following his dream. I'm pursue his vision using the rest of time. The same as my father's dream. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we're all learning a lot about Yoshi Sasaki, from more energy than Kelvin and a rapid steak eater. And I know for myself, my wife was Joyce was shaking her head when it was talking about trying to use a 25-foot boat for fishing. So we've learned a lot. I wanted to just read a couple quotes from some people who couldn't be here. One's from Nancy Campbell, administrator and the staff. Her son's graduating from law school today. She says, "I don't think I ever saw him without a smile on his face or a kind word to say. He was one of the nicest people I've ever met, along with you, Coco." Petra Klein, I will remember, Professor Petra Klein, "I will remember Yoshi as one of the kindest and most thoughtful colleagues I've ever met." And Dr. Jidao Gao may be here today. "I will always remember him as one of the greatest persons and scientists I've ever met in my life." And I picked those three quotes from a book I'm about to give you because, again, it really illustrates Yoshi, whether it was staff, young scientists, or a colleague in the faculty. He always treated you with respect and enthusiasm and energy and this intellectual curiosity. So we have a book of letters and to give to you and Coco. And faculty are interesting characters. I've only been faculty for 5 years, but I've learned that they're very critical of students meeting deadlines, but they're very poor in meeting deadlines themselves. So I'm sure we'll be sending other letters to you to go in this book and scouring through emails for things that we missed. So, Coco. Finally, it's my pleasure to introduce the last speaker, Dr. James Sasaki, another one of Yoshi's sons. And please, Dr. Sasaki.
Good morning. I appreciate everybody being able to make it here today under the conditions. Wow, can you believe this weather? Isn't it fitting? Okay, so I don't normally speak in front of an audience of this size, so please bear with me if I stumble through this. I would like to say that a few words about my father, and I will try to keep it brief, which will be difficult since there is so much to say. My father, he was a brilliant scientist, as all of us know. He was a man ahead of his time in many ways. I can remember as a child when he took me fishing, he started using a hook or hooks with a 90-degree bend in them. And I looked at him puzzled because these hooks are made for jigs, a lead-headed lure, and not intended for the use of bait fishing. So I was a little bit puzzled, and but being competitive, I kept track of who was catching the more fish, and as you would expect, he caught more fish than me. But nowadays, there is a science to fish hooks. They have all kinds of bends in them, and some are carefully designed to where the point is in line with the eye of the hook. And I think that's something that my father was thinking about when he chose to use these hooks that were intended for a different purpose. When I was a little older, my father helped me and my brother attend an introductory computer course here at OU. He told me that the computers are the future and we should learn how to use them. We learned how to write programs using those old perforated cards. Some of you may not know what a programming card deck was, but I can tell you that if you drop your cards, it could quickly ruin your day. Anyway, I am grateful that my father gave us this opportunity. The experience continues to help me even in my current career as a lab superintendent. He certainly was a man ahead of his time, and he had an excellent vision of the future. My father also had the uncanny ability to read and understand people. I remember as a teenager, he took me and Mom golfing. I remember hating and despising the game and wondering what was I doing out here? But he continued to drag me out to the course. It didn't take long for me to catch the golf bug, and now I can't get enough of the game. I also remember when I was in grade school, my father gave me a chemistry set. And I remember feeling that this was the coolest thing I've ever had at the time. With a physics and an engineering background, you can imagine he would have preferred that I was leaning toward physics or engineering. But nevertheless, he gave me the chemistry set. As it turns out, I obtained a degree in chemistry, and that is my profession. Yes, I believe my father knew me better than I did. I'll conclude by saying that my father was a brilliant scientist, and there was so much more he wanted to accomplish. I know I'll never be able to measure up to him because scientists like him are rare indeed. I hope when my time comes that I'll be remembered as a good, caring man like my father, one who can inspire and guide and help people. I look out there at all of you, and I am amazed at the number of people my father touched. I think I can speak for our family that we deeply, deeply appreciate all of you for honoring my father, all of you being the university, those of you who could attend, and many more that could not attend today. We sincerely thank all of you. Please allow me to close in prayer. If you'd bow your heads, please. Father, thank you so much for your grace and your goodness, for your message of hope, for this man's life and how it was spent. We pray that we might all aspire to live as well as my father, Yoshi, did. We thank all of you that he is now safe in your presence. We pray that today you will fill us with faith and guide us along our way so that we might end up in the same place when it is our time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you so much, James. I wanted to start by concluding this to thank the Sasaki family for sharing Yoshi with us over these years, and also thank those that helped in putting this together: Marsh Gelato, Nancy Campbell, Becky Steele, Debbie Barnhill from the school, and Mona Springfield, and Leanne Solly from the Dean's office, and the IT staff. Ben Holcomb's back there, but also Sean Riley, Jason Glass, and Jim Davis. They scanned a lot of pictures taken over the years of Yoshi and the Sasaki family, and the service was streamed live to friends and alumni who couldn't make it, and also I believe we'll probably be able to get a link to the pictures up for people that want those, so you'll have a scanned version also. So thank you very much. Again, thank you for sharing your husband and father, grandfather with us, and there's refreshments out in the atrium. So thank you.